What's going on, guys? Another week of fights, and I love these consecutive fight weeks. It's just the best. No time to get bored, no time to get rusty. Keep on studying fights week in, week out, because last week it paid off in a big way. Over 16 units of profit last week, but moving forward into UFC Vegas 49, Islam Makhachev taking on Bobby Green this weekend. Outside of that, not a whole lot of ranked fighters on this card, but a lot of names that I'm very interested in, a lot of fighters that I'm a personal fan of. So I had to really work to take my bias and put it aside, watch all the tape from a objective perspective here, look at the stats objectively, and some of my fighters that I like so far, I'm gonna have to pick against. Last week, not a whole lot of underdogs that I liked, but this week, I probably like far too many underdogs in this card, so I have to kind of pick and choose the ones I want to put my money on and my faith and trust behind, and kind of move all of our confident plays to the top of our tickets here. So let's get into it. 12 fights on this card. I'm excited for it. Okay, first fight on the prelims is a men's flyweight bout between Victor Altamirano taking on Carlos Hernandez. Both of these guys are making their debut officially here, coming off of again, both of them had, oddly enough, a split decision win on the Dana White Contender Series season 2021 to get their shot here at the big stage. And both are, kind of in the prime of their career as flyweights. Victor Altamirano, 31 years old, 5'8", 70-inch reach, against Carlos Hernandez, the slightly younger guy at 28, again, 5'8", and slightly shorter reach at 67 inches. These guys match up pretty well here, in my opinion, and it's one of those spots where this is kind of a fair fight. There's a lot of these fights where the Dana White Contender Series winner ends up facing some guy in the UFC that's either on a losing streak or just a veteran that, the UFC thinks they could kind of pit them against and move them along. Now they're actually taking two guys that just squeaked by their decision on the show and, putting them on the main stage in their debuts and seeing, which one's going to leave town, So both of these guys are pretty well-rounded fighters, I'd say. Both have deficiencies in their grappling and deficiencies on the feet. I think it's a close fight. You've got Victor Altamirano, slightly better professional record, all of his fights in the LFA organization, and I think even his last amateur bout was in the LFA as well. So doing the tape study on him was rather easy since we have access to all of those fights. Not very impressive. Again, like I said, he faced slightly better competition. I saw him make mistakes, but I saw him also look good against some of the lesser guys as well. Now, Carlos Hernandez, the younger guy at 28 years old here, his resume looks great. He had a very, very long amateur career, more than most people take, 13-2 in his amateur career. And he had some notable key wins against guys that are, pretty good on the regional scene. 7-1 as a professional so far is Carlos Hernandez. And I think he's just good enough to beat Victor Altamirano here. I think he's just good enough. Good diversity in his striking. His takedown defense it seems to be okay, I'd say here. I think even if he does get taken down, I think he's got a good scrambling ability to get back to his feet or even make some reversals. And I think he's a slightly better grappler here too. If you look at just a weird statistic in their stats here, every single time that Altamirano has lost, he's lost by rear naked choke, giving up his back and getting choked out, both as an amateur 3 times and as a professional once. I think he's a different fighter since those losses, but it's just an odd thing that then all of Carlos Hernandez's victories by submission are rear naked chokes as well. So, if you want to look on paper, MMA math, you look at a clear path to victory there. But again, I think both of these guys are improved fighters since some of their losses here. But I still think that Hernandez is just a slightly better striker, a slightly better grappler, and I think it's going to be a very close fight that he will edge out in a decision win. So give me Carlos Hernandez as the slight 120 favorite here. Not a bad number on him, but probably a fight I'm not going to be betting on. Okay, quite an interesting fight in some ways up next with Brahimaj taking on Michael Gilmour. Now, Brahimaj broke my heart last time he fought because he lost to Court McGee. I took him, I knew that was a close fight, but I took Ramiz just because I thought he was the younger fighter. I kind of underestimated Court McGee's ability to nullify grapplers, which is what he does. So that did not go his way. He did before that have the win over Sasha Palatnikov, round 1 submission, which is Ramiz Brahimaj's, best way to win fights is first round submission. His gas tank is known to fall off, even though he's not the most active fighter on the feet. And then before that, he lost to Max Griffin from that ear injury. So, he's kind of a hit or miss guy, definitely, at 29 years old, maybe there'll be a little bit more learning to his game, but we're getting up there. But not much better against Michael Gilmour at 34 years old, a guy who was, I believe he was like a late notice replacement on The Ultimate Fighter before he lost to Gilbert Urbina by round 1 submission. So, Michael Gilmour, 6-4 record, not very impressive, honestly, in many ways. He's pretty slow, pretty inactive on the feet, and that's saying something that a guy like Ramiz Brahimaj is actually more active per minute than he is, very slightly. So that's kind of saying something there. If you watch the Petrossian fight, Michael Gilmour's last fight, he got taken down at will, out-transitioned at will. He really had no defense on the ground but to lay there. And against Ramiz Brahimaj, I think that's asking for a lot of trouble. Ramiz Brahimaj has, questionable ring IQ in his own right. I don't like betting on him anymore because you just can't be sure that he's actually going to do what he needs to be doing, which is getting this fight to the ground and, looking for easy transitions into submission victory. Would be his easiest path to victory. It's what I think is going to happen. But, after the last couple events with the Ramiz Brahimaj, I really can't expect him to be that active and look to win fights. And I think the later that this fight goes, the less I have confidence in Ramiz Brahimaj, honestly. But I don't think there's enough, threat and pressure coming from his opponent, Michael Gilmour, here. So I'm going to take Ramiz Brahimaj to win this fight via first or second round submission. But the confidence to back him with my money, I'm just not going to back Ramiz Brahimaj this time. If you believe in patterns, though, he has been trading wins and losses, and he lost his last fight, so I think he's due for a W here. So give me Ramiz Brahimaj to win by submission. Okay, we've got a fun bantamweight bout up next between Alejandro Perez taking on Jonathan Martinez. Alejandro Perez, the slightly older man at 32 years old and slightly smaller at 5'6", 67-inch reach. The comeback on Jonathan Martinez at only 27 years old, 5'8", 70-inch reach. And I think the physical stats there, especially the reach, are going to play pretty big into the hand of Jonathan Martinez, who is the more accurate fighter, the more active fighter, I think the more technical striker as well. And I think he's really going to give Perez some issues here. Perez is a pretty unorthodox fighter in his own right, pretty creative with the way he enters into the pocket, mixes in some grappling. We saw his last fight over Johnny Eduardo, the aging Johnny Eduardo, where he was able to ground him and, make a smooth transition into that submission over him. So he kind of, cut through the old man as he was supposed to in that fight. Before that, he was a little bit hittable against some guys, but a lot of his wins in the UFC have been over guys that are no longer in the promotion. He's had a pretty long professional career. I do like the guy. I think Jonathan Martinez is just one step ahead of him here in a number of ways. I think just even the southpaw stance of Martinez will give him trouble. And what I really like is the way that Martinez uses his kicks and knees. And Martinez does very, very simple fundamental things, attacking the legs in a variety of ways. Front kicks up the middle, knees up the middle, front kicks to keep range, low kicks, and then he'll do a classic, kickboxer, look low, kick high with the head kick when you don't expect it. And he maintains range pretty well. Before his last fight, he kind of had this way of being a little lackadaisical as the fight went on, and it cost him in a couple spots. But his last fight against Zavid Lavishvili, that fight actually was very impressive, mostly because he started strong, stayed defensively sound against the grappler, and actually, increased his volume as the fight went on, which I love to see. He hit 92 significant strikes in his fight over Zavid, and he actually increased his volume against Zavid as Zavid got tired. And, his round 3 strikes were more than his round 1 strikes. So I like that. I like a guy who's able to keep pedaling as the fight goes on, accelerate through a fight. I think Jonathan Martinez is live to knock out Perez in this bout. I think he will finish him down the stretch. If Perez wants to switch to a grappling game plan, which may happen here, I think Martinez actually showed that he's defensively sound enough. I think he's going to maintain enough range and be able to counter whatever comes his way from Perez. Give me Martinez by third round KO TKO. At the minus 225 price tag, I kind of agree with the line as well. I think that's a good price tag for it. Is there some extra value on Martinez? Maybe he could be a bigger favorite here. I'm sure it's going to swell up as the week goes on, but I'd say minus 225 is about right for Martinez in this spot. Probably check out some props. Maybe the fight doesn't go. Maybe even Martinez inside the distance I'll check out as well, but give me Martinez to win this fight. Okay, up next, a lightweight bout between Terrence McKinney and Faraz Ziam. One of these fights that has supposed to have been materialized like probably months ago, but just didn't work out for COVID or otherwise. I think it might have been COVID this time, but anyways, this is one of those fights like I alluded to earlier where I kind of have to put my bias aside, look at the numbers, look at the tape objectively, and look at the information that we have before us, because I do like Terrence McKinney. Who wouldn't? He's a smiley young kid, has a ton of first-round knockouts. I mean, he's like the equivalent of Francis Ngannou as far as like the tape study goes. This guy's fights are super short. And the only time that we've actually seen him extended outside of the first round KOs that he gets is against Sean Woodson on the Contender Series. And what happened in that fight, he ended up getting finished in the second. So just not a lot of data to work with a young guy. 27 years old is Terrence McKinney, 5'10", 73-inch reach. But he's actually fighting somebody younger than him, 24-year-old Faraz Ziam, who is 6'1", 75-inch reach. So longer man. Longer reach, taller as well, and a rangier striker. From what we've seen from Faraz Ziam, he does very, very well with dancing on the outside, getting his strikes, getting in, getting out of range, and picking his shots pretty well. A decently active fighter, and he ends up landing more on his opponents than he receives back as far as significant strikes landed and absorbed goes. Never been finished. So a guy like Terrence McKinney, you know, his main path to victory is just getting that first-round knockout. He ended up getting his contract in the UFC because even though he dropped the Contender Series a few seasons ago, he had a pretty good run in the LFA, had a main event slot in the LFA where he finished the guy, you know, again, first round KO, very impressive fashion, a minute in, gets his UFC debut against Matt Frevola, and you can't have a better debut than that. He dusts him with a 1-2 down the middle, knocks him out in like 7 seconds, and gets his first W in the UFC. Impressive. But still, we don't learn much from that. So I want to see how he's extended outside of round one, outside of 1 minute of round one. What happens? I mean, he's supposed to have this wrestling base. That's kind of how we got to start. But has he fallen in love with his hands a little bit since it's been working? Will he switch to the wrestling against Faraz Ziam, who's got an abysmal takedown defense? And the only time that Faraz loses fights or ends up getting in a close decision is because of the control time against him from grapplers. So that would be an easy transition if Terrence McKinney does not get a round one KO. He can switch to this wrestling base that he has in his past against Faraz. Because we've seen what happens in like Faraz Ziam versus Luigi Vendramini, a very, very close fight. I think one judge actually scored that a draw. What happened was Faraz was able to dance on the outside for the first round. The second round, land more cleaner, effective strikes than Luigi Vendramini. Now in the third round, Luigi is able to ground him, get like over 3 minutes of control time against him and outstrike him so badly. I think one judge must have scored that a 10-8 round. So that happens time and time again. Now you look at Jamie Mullarkey, another very impressive W from Faraz Ziam. He was able to outpoint him in rounds 1 and 2, very rangy, effective striking, and then Mullarkey's able to control him for several minutes in round 3 and end up winning round 3, making a 29-28 decision. Closer than it should have been. Don Madge, I think that was one of Faraz's first fights in the organization. That's the reason why he lost the bout, is he was, I think, even on the numbers as far as striking goes until round 3. And Don Madge was able to, work the grappling, get control against the cage and on the ground. So that's a clear path to beating Faraz Ziam, is to get the control time against him. He's got basically no takedown defense. His only takedown defense is staying at range in the striking, and he will have the physical advantage of being a longer, rangier guy physically than Terrence McKinney. But Terrence McKinney, we have not seen him implement any sort of game plan outside of getting a round 1 KO. Now, technically we can assume that because of his wrestling background, McKinney's got that ability. But I really do think he's fallen in love with his hands. I don't know what's going to happen. Will he fall apart after he doesn't get the round 1 KO? Or maybe he does get the round 1 KO. So, at plus 100 on Terrence McKinney, minus 120 for Ziam, almost an even money fight. I have to pick Ziam, who's never been finished, has shown time and time again he can actually, win a 3-round fight, and we haven't seen that from Terrence McKinney. So the ways that you can play this, round 1 KO prop, when that comes out for Terrence McKinney, whatever that might be, I assume that'll probably be at least plus 200, I would hope, for a round 1 KO. Even though that's probably, the bookies will be keen on that, as that's all over his resume, round 1 KOs. But you could get round 1 KO prop on Terrence McKinney if you like that side. You could get, you could wait until, what I'm personally doing, since I'm picking Ziam in this spot, is I think Terrence McKinney's a pretty popular guy. I wonder if money will flow in on him towards the end of the week, and maybe it'll flip and you'll get plus money on Ziam. So I'd like that. That's probably my play here. Or if you're able to live bet this, and, Terrence McKinney maybe lands some effective striking in round 1, is the favorite going into round 2, and then you get plus money, live bet between rounds on Ziam, and, you just hope that Terrence McKinney falls apart if you're playing that option. So those are a few betting strategies I would have for this fight. Me personally, I'm going to take Ziam to win. I'll probably bet this if I get plus money on Ziam. So that's how I'm playing this. I'm going to take Ziam to win. Probably by decision, I'd say. I think Terrence McKinney does not land that shot. I'm not going to count on him to land that shot in round 1. If he does, I'd be happy. I'm a fan of the guy. But this is kind of a long, rambling way of saying I'm taking Ziam with very little confidence, but I expect him to win by decision. Just a more proven strategy against an unproven challenger. Okay, up next, the women's fight. That's a little bit strange because it's at 145. I'm not sure why it's at 145, but it's Josie and Nunes taking on the newcomer Ramona Pascal. Pascal's last fight was at 150, so maybe that's why they're at 145. But Josie and Nunes is outsized at 135, being 5'2". I'm not sure how she's going to be outsized at 145. Probably not going to help her out at all, but she didn't seem to need any help when she was outsized against B. Malecki. That fight looked like the women's equivalent of Tai Tuivasa versus Stefan Struve, just the way they matched up and the way it played out. I mean, Josie and Nunes was able to just absolutely overwhelm B. Malecki with strikes throughout the entire 4.5 minutes of that first round before landing that knockout blow. As a southpaw striker and a shorter fighter, her bread and butter was going from that lead jab to that overhand left, which eventually found its mark enough times that it crumpled B. Malecki in a pretty vicious stoppage. So that was a pretty impressive way to start your UFC career. Put a lot of people on notice that you can't count out Josie and Nunes, but now she's swelled up to like a minus 300, minus 325 to probably even minus 350 in some spots over the newcomer Ramona Pascal, 33 years old, the older woman at 5'7", 6-2 record, but plus 250 underdog. Just a little disrespectful, I'd say, of, the fact that she is the bigger woman here, coming in. She weighed in at 150 in her last fight. Josie Nunes weighed in at 135 in her last fight. So, just that alone, I feel like this line should be a little bit closer than that. But Ramona Pascal's looked good in some spots. She's looked very unimpressive in some spots in her regional scene footage I was able to watch. Sometimes she's stuck on the ground, unable to get to her feet, been finished by strikes before. And then you look at her recent fights in Invicta, and she's finishing women by strikes pretty early, vicious knees up the middle, things like that. So she has at least shown a competency in the striking realm, if nothing else. The durability could be questionable in this bout. I'm not sure. Cardio looks like it holds up in some spots, but overall her activity is nowhere near the activity of Josie and Nunes. And at least I know that Josie Nunes is probably going to throw recklessly, bomb into the pocket, not afraid to get in close against her opponent and throw massive volume. So I have to take her. I'm not going to play her at minus 300. I'm not even sure how to play this fight from a gambling perspective. I don't know if I should be betting the unders or the overs. There's so many question marks with these two women. They're both very, very new. Nunes, we rarely see her outside of the first round, and we don't really know what she looks like against decent competition all the way yet. On the flip side, you kind of have the same questions with Ramona Pascal, such a newcomer. I'm going to give a slight advantage to Josie Nunes just because of her power and her ability to just throw massive volume. It was pretty impressive to see her throw so many punches and bunches in that entire first round of her first UFC fight. So give me Josie Nunes. I'll have her winning by her signature first round KO, TKO stoppage, but very, very low confidence spot. I don't know how you can be very confident in this fight. Okay, up next we have a lightweight bout between two young guys, Zhu Rong taking out Ignacio Bahamondes. Pretty staggering size discrepancy between these two, but also it's just staggering how impressively experienced these two guys are for being only 21 and 24 years old, respectively. Now, Zhu Rong at 21 years old made his debut, losing, but he showed that he has that wrinkle in his game that a lot of the Chinese prospects do not, which is wrestling. The ability to have a fundamental striking base at a young age and also be able to have the wrestling as well. Be able to mix up a well-rounded MMA game with some controlled time against the cage and on the ground. And in his second bout against Brandon Jenkins, he was able to do just that and secure a third round ground and pound stoppage after securing, the majority of the round's control time every single round up until that point. So pretty impressive. Now stack that against Ignacio Bahamondes, who had a nice stoppage on the Dana White Contender Series, followed up with a debut against a tough veteran in Ziam DEC, and was able to take him to a split decision. So one judge actually gave the bout to Ignacio in that fight, and it makes sense. It was a close fight, even though Bahamondes got beat up and chewed up on the feet, even being the longer man in that bout. He was able to throw a lot of volume back Ziam DEC's way and make it a very, very close fight. So these losses are going to happen for these guys. They are very, very young. They're still figuring out their game, but he came back, Bahamondes did, against Roosevelt Roberts. Not the best opponent, but still, he made him look like a complete bum and dominated him over 3 rounds with just massive amounts of volume. A very, very good takedown defense game. I think he went like 0-12 officially on takedowns, buffing up his record. I think it's now like 100%. And he ended up disposing of him by a spinning wheel kick, highlight reel knockout in round 3. So he didn't even cruise the decision, even though he was able to. He did not cruise. He actually stepped on the gas and said, all right, let me just try to throw a highlight reel KO. And he landed it perfectly and put Roosevelt Roberts to sleep. So that was very impressive, which is now why he is such a big favorite in this fight. Minus 260 favorite on Ignacio Bahamondes, the comeback plus 200. Thereabouts for Rong Zhu. I think Rong Zhu has a clear way to win this fight. Again, like I said, the control time, the wrestling. I know he's a very popular underdog this week, but I'm gonna believe in the ability of Ignacio to stay on the outside range, and I think even counter him as Zhu Rong gets frustrated and tries to force some of these takedowns. Maybe he'll shoot from like a mile away, middle of the octagon, trying to shoot on Ignacio Bahamondes, maybe dive on a leg, and maybe get kneed in the face and countered. I think it'll be a learning experience for Zhu Rong to be a little bit more defensively sound. Give me Ignacio Bahamondes to win by second round TKO. Betting at this line, I don't know if it should be this wide of a price tag. Two guys that are pretty young in their career, a lot to prove still. This should probably be a little bit closer. So I don't see a lot of value on the side of Bahamondes, but I am picking him to win this fight. Okay, up next, the middleweight bout between two guys that I'm pretty high on right now. I like both guys. Gregory Rodrigues taking on Armen Petrossian. Both guys about the same age. Rodrigues, 30 years old. Armen Petrossian, fresh off the Dana White Contender Series, 31 years old. And Armen Petrossian is a very, very powerful technical striker, but he's got some grappling deficiencies that we noticed on the show. His opponent, Koloff, was able to take him down at will pretty much, out-transition him, hold him against the cage, and Armen didn't really have too much defense against any of those techniques. Once he was able to get separation and Koloff was a little bit tired from holding him in those positions, Petrossian was able to show off his awesome kickboxing skill and land a first-round knockout, so head kick knockout at that. So iced him out cold. He has some other regional scene footage that looks very similar, where he's just a powerful striker. kicks to the body, kicks to the head. Boxing looks pretty tight, just very heavy hands. But these are at 205. He's coming down to 185 now to make his debut, which is probably a smart move. He's not the biggest guy. He could definitely make 185, but it'll be his first time making that weight, so we'll have to watch the scale, see how he looks. And I wonder how that's going to affect his power and his gas tank. I see a lot of guys taking the underdog shot on Petrossian here. I don't hate it, but I mean, he's really rather untested compared to Gregory Rodrigues. Now, I've been betting on Gregory Rodrigues for his past, 5 fights now, starting with when he got knocked out on the Contender Series against Jordan Williams. And that's, in hindsight, that's starting to look like a fluke. I mean, I know Gregory Rodrigues has some durability issues and some cardio issues, and a lot of times he will tire himself out with the grappling attempts on his opponent and then get into these really defensively liable slugfests like he did against... He did that against Dusko Todorovic. He did that against Junior Park most recently, where, I mean, he gets rocked a lot. I mean, he was able to get that comeback victory against Junior Park and actually finish the Iron Turtle, who seemed to be invincible. But he was able to get a nice standing TKO against him in that bout. But he was gassed, man. So I see a lot of people taking the underdog shot on Petrossian just because of the durability issues they see in Rodrigues, the cardio issues. But what I see on the Armen Petrossian side is huge defensive liability on the ground, because Kovalev was able to take him down at will, and to get back to his feet, he gave up his back a few times in that Dana White Contender Series fight. So I feel like with a legitimate BJJ practitioner like Rodrigues, if you're giving up your back immediately to try to get to your feet, I feel like we're going to get a chance to see a pretty easy submission victory for Rodrigues if that's how his defense is against those sorts of transitions. So, but Rodrigues is no slouch in the feet either. He's got power in both hands. He has 2 knockout victories in LFA after his loss in the Contender Series, and he comes back in a big way. Lands very, very beautiful striking against Dusko Todorovic. For whatever that means, we know that Dusko is kind of a busted prospect as well. But then he comes in against Junior Park and, shows some pretty good striking as well, getting the finish there. Now, he can tighten some things up. He can get a little bit better cardio here. Still 30 years old with a big frame for the division. I feel like, there are some improvements to be made that he probably will have made coming into this fight. I just think he's the more proven guy so far. And I do find more ways for him to win in this fight, because he has won decisions, he has won submission, he has won by knockout, and I just see a clear path for him to get a good grappling heavy performance over Armen Petrossian, just because of how Petrossian defends against takedowns, which is pretty much non-existent. How he gets back to his feet is by giving up his back. I think that he'll get his neck snatched up and probably get finished by submission somewhere within the first 2 rounds of this fight, if not just controlled for the majority of it. Also, we don't really know what Armen Petrossian's gas tank looks like when he has to defend against this relentless grappling pressure from Rodrigues. So give me Rodrigues to win. This is a pretty close fight. I think the line, at minus 170 is pretty much right where it needs to be against the guy who's more proven in Rodrigues. But I would probably try to play the unders, or fight doesn't go to decision in this fight. Or if you want Petrossian in this fight, I would bet him by knockout. Likewise, if you would bet Rodrigues, I'd bet him inside the distance, as he does have multiple ways to win this inside the distance. So give me Rodrigues by, I'll say, a second round TKO. Okay, up next, a men's lightweight bout. Another one that is kind of odd in the way that 2 guys in the same weight class can have 2 oddly different proportions here. We got Joel Alvarez taking on Armen Tsarukyan. Armen Tsarukyan, the wrestling machine here, is more of the typical lightweight frame, 5'7", 72-inch reach. But Joel Alvarez is pretty much as big as you can possibly get for 155, and he barely makes it. He's 6'3", 77-inch reach. And in his last fight, looked very, very impressive against Thiago Moises. Didn't even give Moises a chance to get started, just starched him on the feet, adding another wrinkle to his game. I know he's had 1 finish by strikes before, but all of his wins are inside the distance, mostly rounds 1 and round 2 subs. This guy's a legitimate submission threat. which may play into the hand of Armen Tsarukyan a bit. This guy is a wrestling machine, one of these Russian grappling machines, and he, at a young age of 25 years old, is already very, very talented at grounding his opponents, winning minutes. But that ability of Joel Alvarez to, be so competent in the ground in the jiu-jitsu realm, I think he's going to be okay with Tsarukyan taking him down here, if I had to guess, and trying to play jiu-jitsu off of his back, which could be dangerous because if that submission never comes for Alvarez, now you just won Tsarukyan, most of the control time for that round. So that part worries me, but at plus 195, the underdog price in Alvarez, I think he's dangerous enough on the submission front, and now also he's shown that he's got amazing power on the striking realm as well. And with his giant physical advantage over Tsarukyan, I have to take the underdog shot on Joel Alvarez. I got him at plus 195. The comeback price as a favorite for Tsarukyan is about minus 240, minus 250. I think Tsarukyan should be the favorite here, but I think this line should be very, very close compared to where it is now. So I had to take the shot on Alvarez. I think he's got way more ways to win this fight inside the distance. I think he's dangerous enough on, the ground game side of things and also on the feet. So, again, a young guy, 28 years old, and Alvarez, 25 for Armen. These two guys are not their finished products. They're both young enough and in their prime where they can make changes fight to fight. So, both awesome records, too. 19-2 and 17-2 records professionally. The sky is the limit for these two guys as prospects in this division. But I think this is the time that Alvarez is going to shine through once again as an underdog in this spot. So give me Joel Alvarez to win. I'd say he's going to find a way to win another TKO stoppage in the first round. Okay, up next will be a fun fight. One of these sloppy fights that I'm kind of excited for, oddly enough. A women's flyweight bout between Priscila Caceres and Ji-Yeon Kim. And this is... it's odd that this is on the main card. Maybe the UFC thinks this will be a funny fight as well, but both women have pretty bad technique as far as their striking defense, striking accuracy. Their numbers are pretty abysmal. This should be a stand-up fight, and it should be pretty simple as far as how the game plans are going to go. I think Priscila Caceres is going to try to get on the inside, land some of those power strikes that she used to take out fighters like Shayna Dobson and Gina Mazzani. So she does have power in her hands, but she's going to have to work against a 7-inch reach advantage from Ji-Yeon Kim. So Ji-Yeon Kim's going to want to dance to the outside and kind of outpoint herself to a decision here. So I think this will be a classic fight where it's going to be, a total toss-up when it comes to the decision for this fight. It'll be one of those split decisions where, some judges counted the power strikes, the better shots, the more damaging blows from Priscila Caceres versus the total number of significant strikes from Ji-Yeon Kim. So it'll be, kind of a subjective match of do you like the total number of strikes, the efficiency of those strikes from Ji-Yeon Kim, or do you like the power shots, the more damaging blows, the more eye-catching shots from Priscila Caceres? I'm going to have to go with Ji-Yeon Kim just because metrically, she throws more shots per minute. She's a little bit more accurate and a little bit more defensively sound and has the reach advantage there. I think will help her out quite a bit. But you can't count out as the underdog here, Priscila Caceres. Oddly enough, I think there might be some value on her, especially if you take her by decision in this fight. You can get her plus 145 on the money line for Priscila Caceres. By decision is, I see plus 300 out there. So even though I'm going to take my pick, Ji-Yeon Kim to win the fight by decision here, I think it'll be close when you look at how subjective this could be. The bigger shots definitely will be landed by Priscila Caceres. And, if you were to take her by decision here, I wouldn't blame you for that. But just on a picks prediction, I have to take Ji-Yeon Kim by decision. Okay, up next, the middleweight bout. I believe this is the co-main event between Misha Cirkunov and Wellington Turman. Now, I don't know if I can spend a lot of time on this fight. I have to be honest, I don't have a great read on it. I keep on switching sides here. But I'm actually going to settle on Misha Cirkunov with a lot of reluctancy here just because he did not look great in his last fight, but I have to give him the pass. It was his first fight down at middleweight, and he's already a jacked guy at 205. Coming down to middleweight and making that weight for the first time against Krzysztof Jotko, he looked very timid and ended up losing a close fight there. But Wellington Turman, even though he's 25 years old here, it seems to have a bigger upside per se than Misha Cirkunov. I don't know. He just hasn't shown much promise. And a guy who also kind of relies on a grapple-heavy game plan like Misha Cirkunov. I think Misha Cirkunov will get the better of him in these exchanges. He's just had such a wealth of experience. The names that he's fought at 205, and now he's coming down and he'll be facing a natural 185er in Wellington Turman. I think Misha Cirkunov will have a lot of physical advantages in this fight. If he can just shake up the cobwebs, not be so timid now that it'll be a second time at 185, I think maybe he can get the better of the grappling exchanges here and even the better of some of the striking exchanges on the feet. Both guys have shown a little bit durability issues in their career so far, but I don't know, just some of the names that he's fought. I mean, he's fought Johnny Walker, beat Jimmy Crute, lost to Ryan Spann, lost to Jotko in that close fight we just mentioned. Ian Kuntalaba, Nikita Krylov earlier. I know these are a while ago, but I mean, a lot of submission wins against these guys. Losing to Volkan Ozdemir, losing to Glover Teixeira, and oddly enough, he lost to Glover Teixeira a while ago, but now Wellington Turman is training with Glover Teixeira, so maybe that's an advantage for Wellington Turman. He's got that can only help to your training partner now has a win over the guy you're going up against, so he could probably provide some guidance there. But momentum-wise, it looks like Misha Cirkunov is kind of on the downslide of his career, and I want to say Wellington Turman can only go up from here, but at 25 years old, but he just doesn't show much promise. I mean, now losing, a split decision against Sam Alvey. I understand that there was a bunch of fouls in that fight to make it a split decision. He should have won that fight unanimously, but I mean, come on, you're taking Sam Alvey to a decision at that point in his career. It's just hard for me to get behind either guy here. I just have to go with the experience. I mean, 34 years old at Misha Cirkunov shouldn't, even though he looks like he's on a huge decline, he shouldn't really be physically declining that much. I'll chalk up his last timid fight to a bad weight cut maybe, or his first time at middleweight, but I'm not confident in either guy here. I don't have a great read on this fight, like I mentioned, but I will take Misha Cirkunov, albeit slightly at a -120 price tag. It's almost a coin flip fight, so I'll take the guy who has had the more proven career so far. Okay, here we are at the main event. Islam Makhachev taking on his short notice replacement, Bobby Green. Bobby Green stepping in on like 10 days notice. He just fought Nasrat Haqparast and had an impressive performance there, setting some striking records in that bout at lightweight. So he's stepping in to replace Beneil Dariush, so an unranked guy stepping in against Islam Makhachev, who was trying to fight for like a title elimination bout in that fight against Beneil Dariush. So this will be interesting. They'll probably still move him forward if he beats Bobby Green here. They'll probably move him forward to the belt. It just seems sort of like something that's just bound to happen at this point with Islam Makhachev. He looks so impressive. His metrics in the grappling realm are just absolutely astounding. I don't even know if Khabib had some of these numbers. I mean, we're talking about 3+ takedowns per 15 minutes. We're talking about 52% of the time spent in his fights in control time positions over his opponents. And now he's, not just one of these boring Russian grapplers. He's actually finishing people with 3 straight finishes, including those over Thiago Moises and that submission win over Dan Hooker round 1. So, there's just a lot to love. -800, -900, -1,000 favorite seems about right against Bobby Green, just since it's short notice especially. But, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's fighting for the belt against a guy who's not even ranked. So, that those numbers seem like that would make sense. Does Bobby Green have a +600 underdog chance of winning this fight? It's arguable. I don't think so. We've seen Islam Makhachev knocked out one time. I don't think he's going to risk even standing with Bobby Green in this fight. Bobby Green, a very, very efficient striker. Not a strong power puncher, but, volume-wise, he literally doubles up his opponents on strikes, lands about 6 significant strikes per minute, and only receives back, like 3 or less per minute. So he's doubling up his opponents on strikes. We saw that against Nasrat Haqparast. We saw that displayed, for us there in that fight. He's very efficient, very active. He has a little bit of grappling in his back pocket, but I mean, that's going to be nullified against Islam Makhachev. And when you talk about some of the grapplers that Bobby Green has faced in the past, he ends up being a little bit less active on the feet when he gets to defend against chain wrestlers of that caliber. So, I mean, he's never even faced anybody near the level of Islam Makhachev in the grappling realm. I think Islam Makhachev is going to walk right through Bobby Green. I don't think there's a way that I can play the money line on Islam Makhachev. Obviously, that's banana peel price right there. You know, you're almost bound to have a better chance of something bad happening, like Islam Makhachev blows out his knee or something on a takedown. Bobby Green plus 600, Bobby Green by knockout. You know, I mean, these numbers are going to be pretty fun looking. They're going to be like plus, 600 plus 1,000 maybe if you get him inside the distance. But I don't know. I don't think it's enough. I think I'd just be burning my money putting that against Islam Makhachev, in all honesty. No disrespect against Bobby Green. I mean, he's a gangster for taking this fight on such short notice, but I just don't see a clear path to victory for him outside of knocking out Islam Makhachev, and I don't think Makhachev is going to risk it in this fight. I think he'll take a clear-cut path to just slicing through Bobby Green on the ground here. I just don't know when he does it. Does he do it early? Does he do it late when Bobby Green gets tired? So the overs and unders are something I want to take a look at, but I don't really have a clear read on when this is going to happen. You know, we saw him take out Thiago Moises late. Thiago Moises is a pretty defensively sound grappler himself, but we saw him take out Dan Hooker, pretty early, who doesn't have much takedown defense or grappling defense at all. So, just a long-winded way of saying I'm not sure when this fight finishes, but I believe it does finish. Give me Islam Makhachev by, I'll take him by a third-round submission here. Just gets Bobby Green a little bit tired, a little bit of that quit and hesitancy in the back of his head. By round 3, he realizes that he's in for not a fun night for himself. By round 3, I think he gets submitted by Islam Makhachev. Okay, there you have it, the full card breakdown and predictions for UFC Vegas 49, Makhachev versus Green. I'm looking forward to this card. There are some fun matchups on here. Look out in a day or two, I'll have my best bets and props breakdown video where I just outline really quickly some of the spots that I put my money on before the weigh-ins, some, sneaky props that I like on this card. I'll definitely have a few and some underdogs as well. So leave a like, leave a subscribe, share the video, leave a comment on your favorite bets or strong leans for this card. I'd love to hear it. And good luck in all your betting action this weekend. See you guys next time.